Alright, I've been looking at the latest data, and let me just say this. This winter looks absolutely wild. We're not talking about some mild, forgettable winter here. We're talking about an early, aggressive, coast-to-coast event that's going to make the entire country sit up and pay attention. I'm seeing the kind of setup that just screams, brace yourself. Starting in late October, the atmosphere begins to shift dramatically. Cold air from the Arctic starts pouring south earlier than usual, not just brushing through the northern plains, but diving deep into the central and even southern United States. By Halloween, I wouldn't be surprised if some areas in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes are already waking up to a blanket of snow on the ground. Cities like Minneapolis, Green Bay, and Fargo could see their first measurable snowfall before we even carve the last pumpkin. And get this! Even places like Kansas City and St. Louis might see those early flakes flying before November gets going. Then we roll into November, and that's when the real pattern starts to lock in. This is when I'm expecting the jet stream to dip sharply across the central US, funneling in cold air and fueling repeated storm systems. Think of it as a snow conveyor belt stretching from the Rockies to the Great Lakes. Denver, Chicago, Detroit, all in line for above-average snowfall by Thanksgiving. Even the Ohio Valley might see multiple snow events before we reach December, which is unusually early. And if you're down south thinking you're safe, think again. Cold air will be so deep that even parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and northern Louisiana could see some surprise frost and maybe even a few flurries before the year ends. By the way, if you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, please leave them in the comments. I'll answer them individually as time allows. Also, if you like the video and subscribe to my channel, you'd be very grateful. Now, let's move on. Now, once we get into December, that's when winter officially takes over. The country's split. The west coast stays stormy and wet. The northern tier gets buried in snow, and the east starts to feel the full force of cold, Arctic blasts. I'm expecting multiple nor'easters to form along the east coast this December, the kind that bring those big, headline-making snowfalls to Boston, New York City, and Philadelphia. We could easily see totals piling up fast. 2, maybe 3 feet in spots before Christmas even arrives. And if you're out in the Midwest, buckle up. This is shaping up to be one of those years where snowbanks never melt between storms. By the time we get into January, winter's grip tightens. The polar jet is fully locked in, and it's delivering one wave after another of brutally cold air. The kind that bites your face when you step outside. Expect high temperatures struggling to get above zero across parts of the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Montana. I'm talking about dangerous cold, frostbite in minutes type of air. And, while that cold dominates the north, the storm track shifts just enough to hammer the mid-Atlantic and Appalachians again. Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, Albany. This could be the snowiest January you've had in years. And February. Normally we start talking about signs of spring by then, but not this year. Nope. The pattern stays locked in cold and snowy deep into February. I'm seeing potential for late-season blizzards. Big ones. Possibly stretching from the Central Plains all the way to New England. The Pacific Northwest stays soaked and snowy up in the mountains, and even parts of California could see another round of high-elevation snowpack that lasts into early spring. The Northeast, still dealing with that relentless Arctic flow. It just doesn't want to quit. When it's all said and done, this winter could be one of those that people remember for years. I'm talking snow, piling up from the Rockies to the Great Lakes, repeated snow days in the east, and cold fronts diving all the way into the deep south. Cities like Chicago, Cleveland, Buffalo, and Boston could end up with seasonal totals that are double what you'd normally expect. And even cities like Dallas, Atlanta, and Nashville might have a few stories to tell by the time we get into March. Now, zooming back into the lower 48, that's where the real action is about to unfold. Right now, we've got a low spinning up over northern Minnesota and some weaker low pressure further south, and the models are picking up on several active fronts stretching across the country. You can already see precipitation spreading across Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, and up into Minnesota. Classic cold front setup. Then we've got this almost stationary boundary sitting in the central US, not really moving much, and that's where things start to get volatile. Stationary fronts are interesting. Instead of pushing through, they just sit there, allowing warm moist air to lift north while cooler. Drier air slides in behind. And that clash creates a breeding ground for thunderstorms and heavy rain. Right now, we're seeing exactly that. Some nasty thunderstorms firing up over Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center already has a mesoscale discussion out, basically saying there's an 80% chance they'll issue a severe thunderstorm watch in that area. That's a high probability, and it tells me that the environment is primed for strong storms, gusty winds, and maybe even some flash flooding. And speaking of flooding, the northern portions of that setup, especially across Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma, are seeing heavy rainfall right now, enough for flash flood discussions to pop up. The Great Lakes region, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, is also dealing with some passing showers. And if we swing west, we're seeing more activity over the Rockies and even some high-elevation snowfall in Wyoming and Colorado. It's light, but it's a sign that the cold air is deepening. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest just keeps churning. Another round of showers, another system lining up offshore. That region has been living under one storm after another lately. And guess what? The next one's already knocking on the door. Now let's look ahead, because the next several days are when this whole pattern really starts to evolve. By Saturday, October 18th, that cold front strengthens and stretches eastward. You'll notice a ridge holding over the east. That means warmer conditions temporarily, but not the kind of warmth we saw earlier in the season. I mean, when I recorded this, it was around 65 degrees here in Virginia at midday. That's your typical warm ridge temperature in late October. Comfortable, not hot. The deeper south will still feel warmer, but the northern half of the country? It's pure fall mode. By Sunday, that stationary front starts moving, becoming a true cold front with a stronger low forming north of Michigan. That's a textbook setup for pulling down cooler air and setting off a line of storms. We're likely looking at severe weather potential Sunday into Sunday night along that front, with heavy rain and strong winds rolling right into the East Coast by early Monday morning. And don't forget the Pacific Northwest. More moisture, more mountain snow, and more unsettled weather continuing there through the weekend. By Monday morning, the cold front stretches into the mid-Atlantic, while the Northeast starts to light up with a secondary low. Developing over New York State, that's the system that could finally deliver widespread rain to areas that desperately need it. Now as we move deeper into the week, say, Tuesday through Thursday, this whole thing locks into a ridge-west, trough-east pattern. That means repeated shots of cooler air funneling into the eastern half of the country, while the west stays warm. And honestly, that's what's going to keep driving these small, medium, and even major cooldowns for the east. By the middle of the week, that cooler pattern deepens. The Midwest and Great Lakes turn chilly and rainy, and the east follows suit. This isn't just a quick, cool snap, it's a slow mover. Lingering through the 23rd and even the 24th. Those red lines on the models, that's the ridge building out west, and every time it amplifies, the east gets another plunge of cold. It's a repeating cycle, like a weather seesaw. Meanwhile, down south, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. You guys have been running dry for weeks. But the models are showing a nice uptick in precipitation heading your way too. Finally, some meaningful rainfall could help ease those deficits. Now fast forward into the last week of October. This is when the pattern ramps up again. We see a new storm system crash into the west coast, bringing heavy rain and mountain snow to the Cascades and Rockies. Then by next weekend, we've got multiple lows spinning. One over Colorado, another over Washington, one in southern Canada. It's just a big tangled web of low pressure. And that means one thing: widespread storminess across the country. We'll see a major cold front diving south across the plains and into the Mississippi Valley, dragging that cooler air deep into the east once again. You can literally see the yin-yang effect: ridge out west, trough diving south and east. It's classic late October transition weather. And this one's powerful enough to spark another round of thunderstorms, potentially severe, even though we're heading into the end of October. All right. If you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, leave your region or city in the comments. I'll answer them individually as I have time. Commenting is completely free. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.